analysis now. We'll speak to Raed Jarrar. He specialises in Iraqi politics and is joining us from Washington, D.C. Mr. Jarrar, good to speak to you on at TRT World. So what's your sense currently of where we are in the battle for Mosul?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. What's your sense, Mr. Jarrar, of where we are currently in the battle for Mosul?
I think militarily, you had other guests who described the situation on the ground. I wanted to comment on that from a political perspective. What's going on is very concerning because the theme, the concept now, the idea behind the attack is that Iraq is trying to fight extremism or these militias by the use of force. And that is unfortunately a failed theory. We have been trying that for a long time, and these attempts to eliminate extremism by using more militias has not worked historically. I don't think it will work now. Now, militarily, I think there are many concerns that the Iraqi forces and militias affiliated with these forces have been committing gross violations of human rights. I know that many stations, including yours, have been focusing on the crimes committed by ISIS, and these are horrific crimes as well. But unfortunately, the Golden Brigade in Iraq is one of the worst, has one of the worst human rights records among Iraqi forces. So there are many allegations of current violations of human rights happening by this unit and by other units, and many concerns that this will not be a step forward for Iraq. It just seems like it's another example, another chapter of a quagmire of more fighting between militias, sectarian forces that will only lead to more violence and more extremism in the country.
Mr. Jarrar, just lay out for us what you think the Golden Brigade have been up to in terms of these violations of human rights.
So there are many violations that have been documented in the last few years, and these were documented by international organizations such as Human Rights Watch or Amnesty International, or domestic organizations. So the violations include crimes that are committed by the brigade directly, like extrajudicial killings or torture, or other crimes that are committed during battlefield. There are also crimes by the way that they operate overall. So there are allegations of ethnic cleansing committed by Iraqi forces by this particular brigade or other brigades. And of course, by the militias affiliated with Iraq. There is ethnic cleansing, as in they target some minorities in Iraq or some ethnicities and sects, try to displace people from their homes. So there are these huge, like a long record of violations that have been committed by Iraqi forces, that many of them are as bad as the violations committed by ISIS. We are talking about beheading, about rape, about torture, about kidnapping of civilians. So unfortunately, what's going on now is not really a liberation of a city from an extremist group. Many Iraqi analysts, including myself, see what's going on now as yet another battle between extremist militias. It just so happens that some of these militias are affiliated with the Iraqi central government and with the US, and others are not.
And Mr. Jarrar, just if you can explain to us who makes up this Golden Brigade, and also just on a wider point, this is an intense battle, this is warfare. Of course, human rights should be respected at every juncture, but do you accept that in a battle for a city like this, there may be human rights abuses or human rights violations that you can accept at that point but wouldn't accept later on?
Let me address both points. The first point about the makeup of the Iraqi forces at large, or this particular brigade, many of these Iraqi brigades are made up of former militia members. So there were militias, sectarian militias, mostly Shiites and Kurdish, but also Sunnis. In this case, these are Shiite militias who were converted into an army outfit. But they still maintain many of the sectarian affiliations, sectarian symbols within their work within the army. So that is one of the problematic things about dealing with many of the Iraqi units. They are not perceived to be national Iraqi army trying to clear up the country from extremists or militias. They're perceived to be yet another militia themselves, and that is a part of the problem. Regarding your other question, there are very clear rules within international law and local law on how to conduct hostilities. So there are different thresholds for when rules apply. Sometimes human rights laws apply. Sometimes some of these human rights laws are suspended in case international humanitarian law applies. So in the case of war, what we're seeing in the battle of Mosul or Fallujah or battles before, that all of these rules and regulations have been disregarded, that Iraqi forces have been violating local and international law, human rights law, and international humanitarian law. And they have committing war crimes, in some cases what appears to be crimes against humanity. So these are very serious allegations against them made by very serious organizations such as Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, even the United Nations Higher Commission for Human Rights have made these allegations. So these are serious problems that we're talking about now. And without dealing with this context, I don't think we can talk about liberating Mosul. The liberation of Mosul will only happen when we talk about the liberation of Iraq from sectarian politics and from sectarian militias, from taking a step back from the corrupt structures that were introduced to the country in 2003 and rebuilding the country on new foundations.
Okay, Mr. Raed Jarrar, very interesting to talk to you. Thanks for joining us here on TRT World.